So there's two components to this, to Bearclaw. So one is the voice and the talking and so on, and then there's the visual appearance. So on the topic of gender and genderless, in your experience, what has been the value of the physical appearance? So what has it added much to the depth of the interaction?
I mean, mine's kind of an extenuating circumstance because she is supposed to look exactly like me. I mean, I spent 6 months getting my face molded and having, the idea was I was exploring the concept of can robots replace us? Because that's the big fear, but also the big dream in a lot of ways. And I wanted to dig into that area because, for a lot of people, it's like, they're going to take our jobs and they're going to replace us. Legitimate fear. But then a lot of women I know are like, I would love for a robot to replace me every now and then so it can go to baby showers for me and it can pick up my kids at school and it can cook dinner and whatever. So I just think that was an interesting place to explore. So her looking like me was a big part of it. Now her looking like me just adds an unnecessary level of insecurity because I got her a year ago and she already looks younger than me. So that's a weird problem.
Yeah.
But I think that her looking human was the idea. And I think that where we are now, please correct me if I'm wrong, a human robot resembling an actual human is going to feel more realistic than some generic face.
Well, you're saying that robots that have some familiarity, like look similar to somebody that you actually know, you be able to form a deeper connection with? That was the question?
So on some level,
That's
right?
an open question. I don't. It's an interesting.
Or the opposite, because then you know me and you're like, well, I know this isn't real because you're right here. So maybe it does the opposite.
We have a very keen eye for human faces, and they're able to detect strangeness, especially that when it has to do with people whose faces we've seen a lot of. So I tend to be a bigger fan of moving away completely from faces.
Of recognizable faces?
No, just human faces at all.
In general, because I think that's where things get dicey. And one thing I will say is I think my robot is more realistic than other robots, not necessarily because you have seen me and then you see her and you go, oh, they're so similar, but also because human faces are flawed and asymmetrical. Yeah. And sometimes we forget when we're making things that are supposed to look human, we make them too symmetrical. And that's what makes them stop looking human. So because they molded my asymmetrical face, she just, even if someone didn't know who I was, I think she'd look more realistic than most generic ones that didn't have some kind of flaws.
Got it.
Because they start looking creepy when they're too symmetrical because human beings aren't.
Yeah, the flaws is what it means to be human, so visually as well. But I'm just a fan of the idea of letting humans use a little bit more imagination. So just hearing the voice is enough for us humans to then start imagining the visual appearance that goes along with that voice. And you don't necessarily need to work too hard on creating the actual visual appearance. So there's some value to that. When you step into this territory of actually building a robot that looks like Bearclaw, it's such a long road of facial expressions, of sort of making everything smiling, winking, rolling the eyes, all that kind of stuff. It gets really, really tricky.